I never thought I'd live long enough to see this day, the day my own son, the boy I once carried in these calloused hands, the boy who used to crawl into my chest whenever thunder shook the house, would look at me as if I were something he scraped off his shoe, apologize to my mother-in-law, or get out of this house. Now. That was the first thing Tyler said to me last Christmas Eve. Not "Merry Christmas, Dad." Not, "Did you get here okay?" Just a command, sharp, cold, and empty, as if I were a trespasser, not the man who raised him with these scarred hands. The house fell into a thick, suffocating silence. Amanda froze mid-step. Olivia's hands trembled. Noah stopped chewing, his big eyes staring. Even the wind outside seemed to hold its breath, and Beverly, his mother-in-law, leaned back in her chair with a smile so dark even the shadows seemed afraid to touch it. In that moment, two things became painfully clear. One, my son was no longer himself. Two, I had stayed silent far too long. They thought I was just a broke old plumber. Easy to push aside, easy to shame, easy to control. They thought my life was nothing more than leaky pipes, metal dust, and a back that hurt every morning. They didn't know. I could expose them. I could take everything back. I could burn down every illusion they'd built. And they certainly didn't know this. I was not poor. My name is Mark Walker, 63 years old. I live alone in Ashland, Oregon, a place where winter cold can cut through bone and silence can be sharper than any knife. After 40 years crawling through frozen crawl spaces and dark basements, I had saved something no one in the family knew about, a sum large enough to change lives, enough to help the ones who deserved help, and teach a lesson to the ones who knelt at Beverly's cruelty. When my wife Emma died in 2008, I stood over her coffin and made a promise I would protect our son Tyler, no matter the cost. I kept that promise. I sold her car, pawned her wedding ring, worked night shifts, skipped doctor visits, skipped vacations, gave up my own health, just so Tyler could have a future. But in 2018, Tyler married Amanda, and a shadow named Beverly Sanders stepped into our lives. Now it's November 12, 2025, almost 1 year since that Christmas Eve. Ashland sits under a gray sheet of fog. Emigrant Lake is still as glass a mirror reflecting my own life, cold, quiet, hiding something deeper beneath the surface. I stand on my front porch, wrapped in an old jacket, my breath drifting into the 37-degree F air, the kind of cold that gets into the bones of men who've lived more than half their lives. A full year has passed. A year since my own son kicked me out of his house. A year since Beverly smiled, certain she had won. But the cold biting my skin this morning still isn't as sharp as the cold I felt inside that night. I pour myself a cup of black coffee and watch the Siskiyou Mountains fade into fog. And just like that, my mind slips back to the days before all this, before the darkness named Beverly found its way into my family. In 2022, I retired after nearly 4 decades with a wrench in my hand, fixing water heaters, patching leaks, crawling under houses. Life back then was simple, peaceful. Everything smelled like quiet. I spent my days with Noah teaching him how to fish, how to hold a screwdriver, how to tighten a copper fitting, how to tell the difference between damp basement wood and the sharp tang of freshly cut metal. Noah reminded me so much of Tyler when he was small. Sometimes I looked at him and saw my younger life reflected back. In 1997, when Tyler was 7, he nearly drowned at Howard Prairie Lake. I can still see it clearly. He slipped off the dock, splashing into icy water. I jumped in, grabbed him, pulled him up. He shook uncontrollably in my arms, crying and coughing. "I thought you wouldn't get to me in time," he sobbed. I told him I'll always get to you in time. And for years that was the one truth I never doubted. At least, until Beverly walked into his life. Tyler used to be good. A kind kid, a gentle young man, a husband who loved his family. But starting in 2023, the cracks began to appear. Work as a mortgage loan officer hit him hard. Interest rates up, clients down, credit card debt rising like infection under the skin. And that was when Beverly made her move. She never attacked directly. That wasn't her style. She used words soft, poisonous, perfectly aimed. Tyler, you need to be stronger. Our family can't afford to be associated with low lives. Mark is holding you back. She whispered those things quietly, but deep enough to root themselves inside him. I started noticing Tyler drifting away in 2018. It grew worse year by year until 2024, when silence became the language between us. And that silence hurt more than any insult could. A sharp gust of wind snaps me out of the memory. My coffee trembles in my hand. The sun pushes faintly through the fog, but I don't feel any warmer. A whole year has passed, and I still see Tyler pointing at me across that Christmas dinner table. Not because it hurt, but because betrayal from your own child carves deeper than any knife. I look over my yard covered in fallen pine needles, and I know one thing for sure. My fight isn't over. It started the night Tyler believed he had the right to push me out of his life. Beverly thought she won that night, but Ashland isn't her stage. This is my town, my life, my story, and I'm taking back every piece of it with the truth they never saw coming. As I step back inside the house, I reach for an old notebook, the one where I've written everything down. Dates, times, words, proof. I stayed silent for too long. And my silence will be the one thing they regret most. Family tragedies rarely explode in one night. Most of them begin with cracks, small ones. So small you convince yourself they can be fixed with a gentle touch, a quiet talk, a little more patience. But time has a cruel way of widening those cracks, until one day the whole roof comes down on your head. For me, the first crack appeared in 2010. Tyler was 20, then a polite kid, always saying thank you, always smiling when I walked through the door, after a long day crawling under old Ashland houses. He and Amanda, just dating back then, wanted to buy their first home. He had no savings. His entry-level paycheck barely covered the bills. I had been saving my entire life, pennies from small repair jobs, dollars from skipping beers after work, every little check folded away instead of spent. Finally, I gave him $28,000 for the down payment. When he signed the papers, Tyler hugged me and said, "Dad, I promise, you'll never regret this." I believed him the way you believe the sun will rise every morning. But life has a habit of going dark on the one day you need light most. Amanda back then was a sweet girl. She called me Dad Mark, and every time I stopped by, she'd make me a cup of mint tea. One afternoon, she told me, "I hope Tyler grows up to be like you, steady, kind, someone who thinks of others." I smiled, not knowing that years later those same words would feel like a knife twisting inside me. Because Amanda didn't change. But her mother, Beverly Sanders, had a talent for twisting everything she touched into something unrecognizable. The day Tyler announced their engagement, I was genuinely happy. But the moment Beverly stepped out of her white SUV, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the Oregon weather. She looked me up and down, my worn jeans, the heavy-duty jacket, the boots with a little dirt on them, and she smiled. A thin smile, but sharp enough to tell me exactly where she believed I belonged, somewhere far below her. I was a plumber. She was one of Medford's fanciest real estate agents. I thought it was just a difference in lifestyle. I didn't realize I had just met the architect of a decade-long silent war. The first real push came in 2019 on Noah's first birthday. I built him a wooden toy truck, cut, sanded, and painted with my own hands. Beverly picked it up, spun it between her fingers, and said, "Handmade." Cute, Mark, but kids today don't need basic things like this. She placed it at the very back of the gift table behind the piles of expensive electronics she'd bought. Noah loved my truck the most, but Beverly pressed Amanda Noah should play with something more modern. I stayed quiet. Didn't want a scene. My first mistake was staying quiet. Late 2020. Tyler sent me a new family photo. Amanda Noah. Even Beverly were in it, but not me. I asked Tyler, family photo without Dad. He hesitated. Beverly said, "Your shirt didn't match the background," so we retook it. I said nothing, but it felt like someone had punched me right in the chest. In 2021, during a backyard BBQ, Beverly stood beside me and said, "Mark, do you really think a man like you can go through life as a plumber without regrets?" I answered quietly, "I raised Tyler with this job." She gave a cold, almost amused smile. "Well, it served a purpose, I suppose." Her words didn't come out as an insult. They were delivered softly, small, neat, sharp, like a needle. A kind of contempt that comes from years of pretending to be upper class. Beverly had her own circle of friends in real estate, people who compared everything: houses, cars, salaries, handbags, and even the spouses their children married. In their world, someone like me sat at the very bottom of the food chain, a man from the mechanic-smelling basement, someone to be tolerated, not embraced. And Beverly didn't just think this. She said it to others, to her friends, and eventually to Tyler. Tyler had once been confident, but after years living near his mother-in-law, I watched him shrink. He second-guessed everything. He spoke less. He waited for Beverly's approval before saying almost anything. Like he needed her permission just to breathe. I didn't recognize him anymore. I didn't know the exact moment he stopped believing in me and started believing in Beverly. But the change was slow, steady, and dangerous. She chipped away at his self-worth, told him he had to live up to Amanda's side of the family, not live like the boy who once believed his father was the only hero he needed. One cold afternoon in late 2023, my daughter Olivia came by. She sat down, unwrapped her scarf, and said something that nearly knocked me into my chair. "Dad, Beverly doesn't just dislike you. She's trying to redefine who Tyler's family actually is." I went silent. My coffee went cold in my hands. Wind slapped against the window, but the chill in her voice was colder. Olivia continued, "She wants Tyler to believe you're unnecessary, a burden, someone he needs to step away from so they can have a higher class life." When she finished, it felt like a giant door slammed shut behind me, leaving me standing alone in the dark. And in that moment, I realized something: father-son relationships don't fall apart by accident. They're broken slowly, quietly, deliberately by a cold, calculating hand. There are stretches in a man's life when even the smallest breeze can shatter whatever strength he has left. For Tyler, that stretch began in early 2024. And it wasn't because he lacked discipline. It wasn't because he didn't work hard enough. It was because life, in that quiet, cruel way life sometimes chooses, hit him exactly where a man is most vulnerable: his financial footing. Tyler worked as a mortgage loan officer in Medford. On paper, it looked like a job to be proud of: pressed shirts, polished shoes, tidy cubicles, and the faint smell of printer ink always hanging in the air. But jobs like his are built on sand, and when the market shifts, the whole foundation slides. In the first months of 2024, Oregon mortgage rates rose so fast that even seasoned brokers panicked. Clients who once called Tyler every morning now screened his calls. Deals that had been almost approved collapsed in hours. Borrowers no longer qualified, and lenders tightened their standards. It was like watching someone drown in water that looked shallow until you stepped in. Tyler's commission checks dropped nearly in half. His manager, normally calm, turned into someone who spoke in clipped sentences and sent emails at 12:47 a.m. You don't forget timestamps like that. I saw the signs before he said a word. The dark circles. The way he rubbed the back of his neck. The way he stared at his phone like he expected bad news every time it buzzed. I'd seen that look before. I'd seen it in the mirror the year Emma died. But unlike me, Tyler didn't have a wife to steady him. He had Beverly, a woman who mistook control for love and dominance for concern. Tyler started slipping behind on bills. First the gas card, then a credit card, then the second one, then the car insurance. The little things: streaming services, takeout meals. Noah's after-school fees piled up until the monthly total looked like a threat. Amanda's voice trembled when she told me Dad Mark. He barely sleeps. He keeps checking his credit score in the middle of the night. I hear him in the bathroom sometimes, breathing hard. I've known that breath. It's what a man does when he's afraid his whole life is coming apart and he can't say it out loud. People think controlling mothers-in-law yell or meddle directly. Beverly didn't. She waited. She watched. She circled. She approached Tyler the way a hawk approaches a wounded rabbit. Slow, quiet, patient. "Sweetheart," she said one afternoon, "you have so much potential. You just need someone to guide you. Someone who understands finances." She didn't say, "Tyler, you're overwhelmed." She didn't say, "Let me help lighten the weight." No. She said the one thing Tyler was too exhausted to resist. "Let me manage your budget so you can breathe." Manage, budget, breathe. Pretty words, all sugar on the surface. But Beverly never offered sugar without a hook inside. And the hook was simple. She wanted him to listen to her exclusively. Beverly didn't hack into his accounts. She didn't ask for passwords. She didn't touch anything that could get her in trouble. What she asked for was far more invasive. "Let's share an online spreadsheet, sweetheart. Just list every expense. I'll review them weekly. It'll help you stay disciplined." Everyone knows the truth. The moment you let someone examine your money, you let them examine your character. Amanda explained it to me one evening while washing dishes. Dad, Mark. She checks everything. Every grocery receipt. Every coffee Tyler buys. She even questioned a $5 toy we bought for Noah. Then Amanda's voice cracked. She told Tyler he should stop buying things that make him feel poor. "Who says that, Dad, Mark?" I didn't answer. Because deep down, I already knew who Beverly really was. Someone who built her power by shrinking the people around her. Amanda was trapped in the middle, standing on ice that grew thinner by the day. On one side, her husband, anxious, exhausted, and ashamed. On the other, her mother, demanding, judging, tightening her grip. One night when I visited, Amanda sat at the kitchen table, her eyes swollen. She whispered, "Mom keeps saying only her side of the family has standards. She says Tyler needs to distance himself from your influence if he wants to elevate his life." Her voice broke on the word elevate. As if love and loyalty were measured by square footage. As if the work of my hands 40 years under houses and in the cold made me unworthy of being part of my own family. In April, Olivia called me. Her voice was tight, urgent. "Dad, you need to see this." She forwarded an email Beverly had written to Amanda's sister in Portland. It read, "Tyler needs guidance. Mark is not a good influence. If Amanda doesn't help me, I'll take matters into my own hands." Guidance. Influence. Help. Words that sounded noble on the surface, but were rotten underneath. I read the email 3 times. By the third read, my hands had gone numb. Olivia put her hand over mine. "Dad, she's not just trying to control Tyler. She's trying to push you out of his life completely." And I knew she was right. But what hurt me most wasn't the email, or the spreadsheet, or even Beverly's poisonous undertone. It was a moment, a small one, but it pierced deeper than anything else that year. I had stopped by Tyler's house to help him fix a clogged kitchen pipe, a job that took me less than 20 minutes. Muscle memory from 4 decades of crawling under sinks. When I finished and wiped my hands, I heard Beverly's voice drifting from the living room. "You'll never be truly successful as long as he keeps influencing you." He, me. She didn't even call me by name. I froze, waited for Tyler to stand up, to say, "Mom, stop," to defend me as a father, as a man, as someone who had given up most of his life to give him one. But he didn't. He sat there, quiet, still, silent. And there are silences so sharp they cut deeper than any spoken words. I set the towel down on the counter, walked out of his house without saying a word. The evening light stretched long across the driveway, and every step I took felt like dragging a lifetime behind me. In that moment, I finally understood something. A man doesn't lose his son in a single day. He loses him in moments, small, painful, silent moments that add up until one day the boy who once clung to your shirt now looks right through you, And for the first time in my life, I realized Tyler wasn't just slipping away. He was being pulled, piece by piece, dollar by dollar, week by week. Pulled into Beverly's world, a world where a father like me didn't belong. There is one thing Beverly Sanders has never understood, and perhaps will never understand, as long as she lives. The love between a grandfather and his grandson is unlike anything else on this earth. It has no agenda, no calculation, no class, no status. Just a simple, pure affection, as honest as a child's laughter, as familiar as the smell of wet soil after a summer rain. And because it is so pure, I never imagined someone would try to destroy it. But Beverly did. He was only 6, but his heart was wide enough to hold all of Oregon in it. We fished together on quiet weekend mornings. He'd grip the fishing rod awkwardly, asking me everything from why fish liked shiny bait to why lake water in the spring felt so cold. I answered each question slowly, patiently, the same way I used to answer Tyler when he was little. Some afternoons we sat together in my garage fixing his tiny red bicycle. I showed him how to oil the chain, tighten the brakes, and listen to the gears to know what was wrong. And every time Noah looked at me with eyes that glowed like morning sun. "You're the smartest, Grandpa." I wasn't smart. I was simply a man who worked with his hands. But to Noah, I was a superhero. And maybe that was exactly why Beverly hated me. One June morning, Tyler and Amanda hosted a backyard BBQ. I arrived early carrying some meat and my toolbox just in case they needed anything fixed. Noah ran toward me, wrapped his arms around my leg. "Grandpa, did you bring the fishing rods?" I smiled. "Of course I did." Tyler smiled too. Amanda's eyes softened. She knew how much Noah adored me. "But Beverly?" She folded her arms across her expensive blouse and stared at the fishing rods like I had dragged a dead animal into the party. "Fishing." Her voice stretched cold and bored. "Mark, fishing isn't exactly a classy activity. Kids today need better influences." I replied quietly, "Class doesn't make a child happy, Beverly. But childhood memories do." She didn't respond, just lifted one corner of her mouth, a tiny surgical smirk that cut deeper than words. In that moment, I realized something. She didn't hate fishing. She hated that Noah loved me more than she wanted him to. In July, Beverly began introducing rules. The first one was about the garage. "Mark, garages aren't sanitary. Noah shouldn't play in there. It's dirty. Not suitable." That garage was where I taught Tyler how to use his first wrench, where Noah sat on a wooden crate swinging his little legs watching me fix the lawnmower. But Beverly wanted to shut that door, not because of dirt, but because the garage was a place where Noah connected to me. Then she targeted school pickups. One afternoon, Amanda called me last minute, so I went to pick Noah up from school. But the office staff asked, "Are you on the authorized pickup list?" I hesitated. I had picked Noah up many times before. When I asked Tyler about it, he said, "Mom wants clearer rules. If you want to pick Noah up, just tell me first." Rules. That word kept appearing. Rules about letting Noah use my toy tools. Rules about giving him ice cream after dinner. Rules about taking him to the park. Every rule pushed me one step further out of Noah's world. Amanda was gentle, too gentle to fight her mother, but too kind to pretend everything was fine. One rainy night she showed up at my door, coat-soaked hair dripping, eyes tired. "Dad, Mark." She hesitated. "I'm sorry for what Mom's doing. I know she's crossing lines. But Tyler is stretched thin. I'm afraid if I go against her, everything will fall apart." I looked at Amanda, dark circles under her eyes, hands trembling. "You don't need to apologize, Amanda. Just don't let them teach Noah to fear me." Amanda broke down crying. And then she said something that felt like someone was snapping my ribs one by one. "I'm afraid." That's exactly what she's trying to do. One afternoon in September, I took Noah for ice cream after school. He wore a tiny blue hoodie, shoes dusty from the playground. We sat at a small outdoor table, sky clear, air gentle. Noah was happily eating his vanilla scoop, face messy like any 6-year-old. Then suddenly he looked up at me with those big brown eyes and asked a question I will never forget. "Grandpa, are you the bad guy?" For a moment I thought I misheard. I set my coffee down slowly. "What did you say?" Buddy Noah looked down at his spoon. "Grandma Beverly said, 'You cause trouble, and bad guys cause trouble.'" In that instant, something inside me plummeted like a stone falling through the frozen depths of a winter lake. The wind stopped. The sound of traffic on the small Ashland road faded. Even time seemed to hesitate. All I could hear was my own heartbeat, slow, heavy, painful. I leaned in gently. "She really said that?" Noah nodded. "Grandma said I should listen to her, not to you. Because you don't know what's best." That sentence from a 6-year-old felt like a verdict. I had heard Beverly insult me. I had seen her undermine me. I had watched Tyler drift away. I had seen Amanda collapse under pressure. But nothing hurts the way it does when your grandson looks into your eyes and asks, "Grandpa, are you the bad guy?" That wasn't Noah's voice. It was Beverly's voice, wearing Noah's innocence like a mask. A knife placed gently into a child's hand so he could unknowingly stab someone he loved. I pulled my chair closer and wrapped Noah in my arms. "Noah, Grandpa is not the bad guy. Grandpa loves you. More than anything in this world." He hugged me back, small arms tight around my neck. But I knew. Even if he didn't understand, a crack had formed inside him, and I knew exactly who put it there. When I brought Noah home, I saw Beverly's white SUV parked in the driveway. She stepped out with that expensive coat eyes sharp enough to slice through steel. This time I didn't look away. I met her eyes head on. And in that silent moment under the gray Oregon sky, I realized this war wasn't just about me and Tyler anymore. It was about a woman who believed she had the right to decide who was worthy of being family. And right there in the cold air that smelled of pine and rain, I made myself a promise. She had touched Noah. She had crossed a line no one should ever cross. And I would not forgive her for that, not ever. There are moments in life when the little signs, the tiny red flags, seem too small to matter. You see them once and you convince yourself you're imagining things. But when the same signs repeat, when each scattered piece slowly clicks into place, you understand you were never imagining anything. Early fall of 2024. That realization hit me like a cold gust rolling down from the Siskiyou Mountains. Every path, every rumor, every whisper led back to one person, Beverly Sanders. Kyle lived right across from Tyler's house. A middle-aged man, gentle, quiet, the kind who loved restoring old cars and brewed his morning coffee out on the porch no matter the weather. I knew Kyle because Noah often ran across the street to play with his golden retriever. One Sunday afternoon I was standing beside my truck when Kyle walked over, his eyes scanning the street as if he wanted to be sure no one could hear him. "Mark," his voice lowered tight, "there's something I think you should know." I frowned. "What's going on?" He exhaled heavily. "At the church brunch this morning, I overheard Beverly talking with a few of the ladies from the fellowship group. I didn't say a word. Everyone in town knew the fellowship brunch ladies, wealthy, loud, and even louder behind people's backs." Kyle continued, "She told them you've been short-tempered with Tyler, that you're creating chaos in their home, that you're interfering in their family business." I felt my fingers curl against the brim of my cap. Not with anger, but with a slow, steady heaviness settling in my chest. Kyle shook his head. "Mark, I know you're not that kind of man. I just thought you should know what she's been saying." I thanked him quietly, but inside it felt like someone had dropped a stone into the depths of a dark lake. A week later I went to church. I'd gone there regularly for years, not because religion guided my life, but because Emma once loved this place and I kept going for her. After the service, Pastor Raymond walked over. He was a gentle man, the kind who rarely meddled in personal matters. Yet that day he placed a hand on my shoulder and said slowly, "Mark, sometimes people say things that don't quite reflect the truth." He held my gaze. "You understand what I'm saying, don't you?" I nodded. I didn't ask who he was talking about. I didn't need to. Everyone in Ashland knew Beverly loved standing in the center of a crowd lecturing about family standards as if she were preaching scripture. When a socially powerful woman talks about you behind your back, your silence stops being kindness and becomes the very weapon used against you. Late September, around 9 p.m., Amanda showed up at my front door. Her eyes were swollen hair, slightly messy coat damp from the night air. "I need to talk to you," she whispered. She sat down at my kitchen table, hands trembling as she opened her phone. "Dad, Mark, you need to see this." It was an email from Beverly to Amanda's sister in Portland. 11 words. "I'll make sure Mark knows his place." I read it 3 times. Amanda wiped a tear. I didn't mean to read it. Mom left her phone on the counter, but when I saw that line, I knew something was wrong. She met my eyes, voice shaking. "Dad, Mark, she isn't just being difficult. She's trying to push you out of this family. I grew up with her. When she says something like that, it means she has a plan." I asked quietly, "Does Tyler know?" Amanda shook her head. "He wouldn't believe me. He's too fragile right now. And Mom knows exactly how fragile he is." I looked at Amanda and saw a woman being crushed between 2 forces, a manipulative mother and a husband drowning in stress. The following weeks felt wrong in ways I couldn't put into words. I called Tyler. He was always busy. I texted Noah. His replies grew shorter. Amanda kept apologizing but always cut the conversation short because Mom is on her way. I stopped getting invited for dinner. Tyler no longer asked for my advice when something at the house broke. Noah stopped being dropped off for weekends at my place. One night I sat alone in my garage, the yellow light casting shadows over the tools that had been with me for decades. And I realized everything was shifting, inch by inch, in Beverly's favor. Olivia's words echoed in my mind, "Dad, she's trying to redefine who belongs in this family." It no longer felt like suspicion. It felt like strategy. That Friday, Amanda called me over to fix a leaking kitchen faucet. Beverly wasn't around. Tyler had just gotten home. Noah was upstairs watching cartoons. As I stepped into the living room, I froze. The family photo from 2021, the one where Noah sat in my lap smiling like sunshine, was gone from the shelf. I scanned the room. Nothing. Instead, neatly lined up were the professionally staged, Beverly-approved portraits: Tyler, Amanda, Noah, perfect lighting, perfect clothes, perfect smiles, and no me. Something pulled me toward the cabinet under the shelf. I opened it. There it was, the picture of me and Noah face down, shoved into a corner like someone had thrown it away, and then hesitated. I didn't touch it, didn't pick it up. I simply stared. Amanda walked in and halted. "Dad, what are you looking for?" I didn't answer. I just lifted the frame from inside the cabinet and placed it back on the shelf where it belonged. Amanda's face went pale. "Dad?" Her voice barely audible. "I swear, I didn't put it there. It wasn't me." I nodded. I know. I knew exactly who had done it. This was no longer speculation, no longer paranoia. Beverly didn't just want me away from Tyler. She wanted to erase me from the family's memories piece by piece. That truth, small as it seemed, ignited something inside me. Not explosive anger, but a quiet, controlled fury. The kind of anger that doesn't shout. It plans. And in that moment I understood something clearly. The real battle had begun. And Beverly had no idea what kind of man she had just awakened. Some battles begin with shouting. Some start with accusations. But the war between Beverly Sanders and me started with a stack of paper. A stack that looked harmless, but inside it was a trap so precise, only someone who knew my son's weakest points could have built it. One June afternoon in 2024, Tyler stopped by my house after work. He looked exhausted. Dark circles under his eyes, tie-loosened shirt wrinkled from hours in the car. When I looked at him, I saw a version of myself from 30 years ago, a man held together only by responsibility. "Dad, I need you to look at this." He dropped a refinance packet in front of me, paperwork for restructuring the mortgage on his house. I grabbed my reading glasses. "You refinancing to lower the monthly payment rates keep climbing. I can't keep up anymore." I started flipping through the forms. The beginning was normal lender information, interest rate, closing costs. But on page 7, my stomach tightened. There, buried among standard mortgage forms, was a strange addendum. Temporary household financial authorization. I read it twice, then a third time. It allowed Beverly to review Tyler's full financial records, step into financial decisions if Tyler is under too much stress, receive notifications from the bank if Tyler made late payments, participate in refinance decisions if issues arise. Not illegal, not fraudulent, but extremely dangerous. This type of authorization legal under U.S. law doesn't give someone access to your accounts, but it gives them influence over your money. And anyone who controls your finances controls your life. I looked up slowly. "Tyler, did your mother-in-law give you this?" Tyler scratched his head, avoiding my eyes. "She said it's just a backup, in case something happens, and she can help." Help. The same word Beverly used, like a royal decree. I set the papers down on the workbench in my garage, exhaled deeply. "Son, listen to me. Don't sign this. This isn't for someone who wants to help you. It's for someone who wants to control you." Tyler's jaw tightened. His eyes weren't the eyes of the little boy who trusted me without question. They were the eyes of a man whose mind had been bent by stress and by a woman who knew exactly how to twist it. "Dad, Mom just wants what's best. You always assume she's doing something wrong, but she actually wants me to be stable." Stable. I wanted to shout stable, like having your expenses judged down to the last cent. Stable, like living under rules someone else imposes. Stable, like letting your own mother-in-law push your father out. But I didn't shout. I spoke low, steady, firm. "Tyler, you're handing the keys to your life to the wrong person." He stood up abruptly. "I already signed it." Those words felt like a blade going straight into my chest. Amanda confirms the fear. After Tyler went inside, I stayed in the garage staring at the papers. A few minutes later, Amanda stepped out. She stood at the doorway, hands holding the edges of her shirt, as if she wasn't sure she should speak. "Dad, Mark, I heard everything." She walked closer, voice trembling. "I don't like Mom getting involved in Tyler's finances. But he's overwhelmed, and he says I can't help him." I nodded slowly. "Amanda, you know exactly what your mother wants." Her throat tightened. "I know. And it scares me." Olivia's confession. That night I called Olivia, the one child who had always had enough distance to see the bigger picture. When I told her about the authorization, she went silent. Then her voice cracked. "Dad, I need to tell you something. Please don't be mad. Just say it." She inhaled shakily. "For 2 years. I barely talked to you because Beverly told me, if you want to grow up, don't listen to him. He'll only make you weak." I froze. Each word fell into my chest like ice. "I'm sorry, Dad," she cried. "I was stupid. I let her control the way I saw my own father." I replied softly, "It's not your fault. Beverly knows exactly where to strike, who to target, and when." In that moment, a chilling truth hit me. Beverly hadn't just manipulated Tyler. She had tested her methods on Olivia. Maybe Amanda. Maybe others in Tyler's life. She didn't want to control just Tyler. She wanted to control everyone Tyler loved until the only person he depended on was her. A week after that call, I stopped by Tyler's house to return a wrench. I wasn't expecting anything unusual, but as I walked into the living room, I saw Beverly standing by the display shelf rearranging photos. I stayed still watching quietly, waiting to see what she would do. She picked up one particular picture, the one of me carrying Noah on my shoulders when he was 3, both of us laughing, both of us alive in a way you can't fake in a studio. Beverly stared at the photo for a moment with an expression I could finally read, not anger, not hatred, just the cold calculation of someone rearranging a room to fit her idea of aesthetic. Then she set the picture into the bottom drawer of the cabinet, closed it, as if it had never existed. I looked straight at her. She gave me that familiar thin smile. Mark, some pictures belong in storage. Don't you think I didn't respond? Didn't grab the photo? Didn't yell? I simply said quietly enough that Tyler wouldn't hear, "Be careful, Beverly." Some men, when pushed too far, don't step back anymore. She raised an eyebrow. Didn't answer. I turned and walked away. My fist clenched so tight my knuckles went white. And in that moment I understood with absolute clarity, Beverly didn't just want to control Tyler. She wanted to erase me not just from their home, but from the very definition of family in the eyes of everyone around them. And that was the moment I began planning. For real. 1 week before Christmas Eve 2024, Amanda invited everyone over for dinner. A simple family meal, or at least that's what it should have been. But the second I stepped through the doorway, the truth hit me like a cold wind off the Rogue Valley. Tyler forced a smile. Amanda bit her lip. Noah ran straight into my arms and hugged me tight as if he'd been waiting for that moment all day. And Beverly sat at the head of the table, hand resting lightly on her wine glass, wearing a shallow half-smile like my presence alone had ruined her evening. Dinner began with harmless small talk. Amanda asked about the weather in Ashland. Tyler asked if I had fixed the lawnmower. Everyone was trying to keep the peace. Everyone except one person. Beverly. She swirled her wine, looked me over like I was some cheap piece of furniture, lowering the value of the room. Mark, at your age you must be thinking about stepping back a little, letting the younger generation make the decisions. Right? Her voice was soft, but every word cut with precision. Step back. Let the young decide. The real message, get out of Tyler's life. I didn't react, didn't rise to the bait. In war, the first person to raise their voice is usually the weakest one in the room. Tyler tugged lightly at his mother-in-law's sleeve. Mom. Not tonight. Beverly widened her eyes dramatically. Oh, honey, I'm just being honest. Sometimes older people cling too much and make things complicated. Older people cling. Complicated. The room tightened. No one breathed. Amanda paled. Her hands shook beneath the table. Noah looked around, big blue eyes sensing tension he couldn't fully understand. He scooted his chair closer to mine. Tyler scrambled to change the subject, but it was too late. Dinner was already sinking. Amanda tried again. Mom, have you tried the chicken I used your recipe? Beverly smiled, set her fork down like she was judging a contestant. You did well. But you wouldn't have to work so hard if someone helped more around here. Sometimes, older folks become a burden instead of a help. She didn't look at me when she said it. She didn't have to. Everyone knew who she meant. Amanda's head dropped. Tyler inhaled sharply. Noah stared at me, sadness clouding his face. I rested a hand on his shoulder. I didn't need to win a fight at the dinner table. I needed Noah to see that real men don't crack under cheap insults. I kept eating, silent, steady. And my silence clearly bothered Beverly. She cleared her throat. Our time has passed, Mark. You know that, don't you? I set my fork down and finally met her eyes. Calm, level, unmoved. Whoever's time has passed usually knows it themselves. Just one sentence. Not hostile, not dramatic, but enough to stir something dark behind Beverly's eyes. And then truth came from the last person any of us expected. Beverly reached for more wine, muttering, "Some people just don't know when to let go." And Noah, my sweet, gentle 6-year-old grandson, blurted out, "Grandpa isn't old?" His voice rang across the room clear and bold. "He's the strongest person I know." The room froze. Beverly's wine glass stopped midair. Her smile evaporated. Color drained from her face. Tyler's eyes widened. Amanda looked at Noah as if he had just thrown a grenade onto the table. And me, I said nothing. But inside my heart twisted equal parts pride and pain. Because children only say things like that when they've heard grown-ups say the opposite. Beverly pressed her lips together, wiping an invisible smudge from the table. "Noah, sweetheart. You don't understand adult things. Strength isn't about fixing bikes or fishing." Noah immediately slid his chair even closer to me, a simple, instinctive act of protection. Amanda was visibly shaking now. She pressed her hand on her thigh to steady her breathing. Tyler muttered, "Mom, please." But Beverly only leaned back, took a slow sip of wine, and said, "I'm simply telling the truth. Some people should know their place in the family." That word place hit the table like a drop of molten tar. Sticky, dark, impossible to clean off. And then it happened. Noah shot to his feet before anyone could stop him. His tiny hand gripped the edge of the table. His voice trembled but didn't break. "That's not true. Grandpa helps everyone. He helps Daddy fix things. He helps me. He's not old. He's not weak. He's the strongest." Tyler stood too, not out of anger but fear that Noah was about to cry. Amanda buried her face in her hands. The room collapsed into silence. And Beverly, she turned away, a twitch at the corner of her mouth she couldn't hide. Jealousy. A woman like her could not stand that a child loved me more than her. Amanda wrapped her arms around Noah, whispering gently to calm him. Tyler looked at me with apology written across his face, but no words came out. And Beverly, refusing to lose control in front of everyone, stood up abruptly and brushed her dress smooth. "I think I should leave. Some people are too emotional." She walked out. The door shut behind her with a heavy, decisive thud, the sound of a storm beginning to form. Noah wiped tears with his sleeve, ran into my arms again. "Grandpa, don't be sad." I stroked his hair, smiling softly, though inside me a quiet fire had begun to burn. Because I finally understood Beverly was no longer trying to guide, no longer trying to help, no longer trying to influence. She had started sabotaging. And when a woman like Beverly feels her ego threatened, she doesn't attack softly. She retaliates relentlessly. Family happiness doesn't always shatter with a loud crash. Sometimes it breaks with tiny cracks, hairline fractures that slip quietly through the seams, spreading, widening, until the whole structure collapses from nothing more than a single breath. And for Tyler's family, that crack had a name: Beverly Sanders. It began with a late Tuesday text from Amanda. "Dad, Mark, I need to talk to you." When I arrived at the house, Amanda opened the door with red, swollen eyes. She pulled me into the kitchen and whispered, voice trembling, "Mom. Mom said Noah shouldn't be alone with you anymore." I froze. Why? Amanda wiped her cheek. "She said you're a bad influence. That you make Noah think wrong about adults. And that you don't respect the family. She said when you change your attitude, then maybe Noah can spend time with you again." Attitude. The word fell out of Amanda's mouth like a verdict. I asked, "What do you think?" Amanda shook her head fast, desperate. "I don't agree. I would never agree. But Mom, she's pressuring me. She said if I don't listen, she'll stop coming to the house." I almost laughed. Stop coming, God. I wished she meant it. But for Amanda, that wasn't a relief. That was a threat. Because her entire life, Beverly had drilled into her that family is everything, and Beverly alone got to define the word family. Amanda sank into a kitchen chair and held her head. Dad, Noah cried all night. He doesn't understand why he suddenly has to stay away from you. That was Beverly's first strike, and she aimed at the softest place she could find. In all the years I'd known Amanda, I had never seen her push back against her mother. But that night she finally did. She said, I told Mom, Noah loves his grandpa. You're hurting him. Amanda swallowed hard, and she yelled at me. You don't know how to raise your own child. Mark is ruining family order. I breathed slowly, and after that Amanda's voice cracked. I told her, this isn't about Noah. This is about you hating Mark. She slammed her hand on the table. And Dad, I've never seen her like that. Amanda covered her face. I never thought my mom would try to tear my family apart like this. When Tyler came home, Amanda told him everything. He sat on the couch, head in his hands, a man caught between two collapsing worlds. Dad, I don't know what to do. Why not? Tyler's voice barely rose above a whisper. Mom said, if I don't take her side, she'll stop helping with the financial support. I stared at him. What support? Tyler hesitated. She pays part of Noah's daycare. I'm struggling, and I need it. I understood now. Beverly wasn't just squeezing Amanda with guilt. She was squeezing Tyler with money. She knew he was drowning. She knew exactly where his weak spot was. A man caught between debt and family is the easiest man in the world to control. A week later, I stopped by to return a drill I had borrowed. I stepped inside first. Tyler and Amanda were still upstairs. That's when I heard Beverly's voice out back on the patio. Not the sugary, sweet voice she used at brunch. Not the gentle tone she used in front of Tyler. This was different. Cold, sharp, real. I'm done with this. I'm not pretending anymore. He won't be part of this family much longer. I froze. My hand tightened until my nails dug into my palm. I didn't know who she was talking to. Maybe her sister in Portland. Maybe someone from her church brunch group. Maybe a colleague in real estate. Didn't matter. The person she aimed at was me. Not limit visits with Noah. Not set boundaries. Not less involvement. But erase. I stepped back slowly, a weight settling in my chest. I had thought Beverly wanted control, but no, she wanted more. She wanted me gone, out of Tyler's life, out of Noah's memories, out of the definition of family, a definition she guarded like a queen guards her crown. That night, Amanda came to my house alone. She sat on my old sofa, the same one Emma used to sit on while she knitted. Amanda broke down sobbing. Dad, my mom isn't just making things hard for you. She's destroying my family. I didn't interrupt. I let her speak because sometimes the only way someone sees the truth is when they hear their own voice say it. Amanda buried her face in her hands. I finally understand. Mom doesn't want to help Tyler. She wants to control him. She wants influence over Noah. She wants power over every decision. She wants authority over everything. Her breath hitched. And I'm scared, Dad. Really scared. She looked at me, tears streaking her cheeks. I know you've endured her attitude for years, but I didn't think she would go this far. I placed a hand on her shoulder, not to comfort her, but to affirm something neither of us could avoid anymore. The storm had arrived, and this time, there was no walking away from it. After Amanda left, my house fell into silence. Outside, the Oregon wind cut through the pines, a cold edge sliding under the windowsill. Inside, my chest felt just as cold. I looked at an old picture of Tyler on my shelf, a little boy gripping my hand on the lakeshore, laughing as I pushed his bike for the first time. Now, another woman was deciding who belonged in his life and who didn't. And I knew one thing with absolute clarity. If I didn't stand my ground now, I would lose my place in my own family forever. I remember that night. A Christmas Eve so cold the wind scraped against Tyler's roof like metal claws dragging across a window pane. I stood at his front door for a long time. Not because I was afraid of the cold, but because I was afraid of that feeling, the one where you no longer belong in a place you once called home. But Noah had called me earlier that afternoon. Excited, "Grandpa, come early, I made you something." That alone was enough to make me step into the storm. Amanda opened the door. She tried to smile, but the swelling around her eyes told the truth. She had been crying. "Dad, Mark, come in." Inside, Christmas music played, but instead of feeling warm, it felt sharp, artificial, hollow. The smell of cinnamon, roasted chicken, pine needles, all things that should have felt comforting, hung in the air like a blanket soaked in worry. Tyler stepped out from the living room. "Hi, Dad." It was a forced smile, but the eyes, they looked away. "And Beverly?" Beverly stood by the fireplace with a glass of wine, giving me a look sharp enough to strip paint from the walls, as if I were some stain she wished she could scrub out of her living room. I hung my coat. Beverly glanced over. "Mark, you just used the main guest hook." Translation: You are not a main guest. Amanda stiffened. Tyler swallowed hard. I answered softly, "I'll move it if you'd prefer." Beverly smiled, icy and pleased. "Good." Silence followed, the kind that drops like a metal coin onto hardwood floors. Then Noah bolted out of the kitchen. "Grandpa." He hugged my leg, then held up a drawing. A bright, messy, beautiful picture of me with my gray beard, work helmet standing beside him, and his little red bike. At the bottom he had written, "Grandpa is my hero." I felt something tighten in my chest. Not pain, but something deeper. Something holy. Olivia covered her mouth, overwhelmed. But Beverly. She stepped forward, lifted the picture, and examined it as if checking for defects. Then she said the sentence that froze the entire house. "Cute. But maybe we shouldn't display this tonight. We have guests coming. We don't want a messy drawing on the wall." She reached for the magnet on the fridge. Noah screamed, "No! It's for Grandpa!" Amanda rushed in and blocked her. "Mom, stop!" Dinner began in silence. Amanda sat close to Noah, trying not to shake. Olivia stared at her plate, too afraid to speak. Tyler kept looking back and forth between his mother-in-law and his wife, like a man standing between two loaded guns. Beverly rotated her wine glass, her voice dripping with sweetness, the poisonous kind. Some people don't know how to keep Christmas traditions. Sometimes the wrong presents can ruin the whole evening. I knew who she meant. But I didn't let her win. I answered gently, calm. Sometimes families need new traditions, kinder ones. Amanda looked up at me, her eyes full of both gratitude and grief. Beverly slammed her glass onto the table. Wine splashed onto the white cloth. "New traditions. People like you ruin everything. Family image, stability, discipline. You ruin every single thing you touch." The words shattered through the room like a pane of safety glass collapsing under a hammer. Tyler froze. Amanda flinched. Noah clutched my arm. Olivia covered her mouth, trembling. I looked at Beverly, steady, unshaken. And that calmness made her even more furious. Suddenly Tyler shot up from his chair. The wooden chair crashed to the floor behind him, a sound like a gunshot. His face was red, eyes wide, not with rage at me, but with fear. Fear of his mother-in-law's judgment. Fear of losing her financial support. Fear of the shame she had fed him for years. He yelled, voice cracking, shaking the curtains, "Dad, apologize to my mother-in-law." The room fell dead silent. Or leave. Each word landed like a hammer, like a sentence. Amanda burst into tears. "Tyler, no, stop." Olivia stood up, her voice shaking. "Tyler, that's your father." But Tyler wasn't listening. He couldn't hear anything anymore. He was drowning in his own fear, his own shame, pushed there by Beverly. Noah broke into sobs. Sharp, panicked, heartbreaking. No, don't make Grandpa leave. Amanda hugged him, terrified. Olivia cried into her hands. The air felt like ice. And me. I looked at my son, my only son. The boy who held my hand when Emma died. The boy I taught to swim at Lithia Park. The boy who once cried because he thought I wouldn't come to his graduation. And now he stood before me, demanding I apologize to the woman who had torn his family apart. I didn't speak. I didn't have to. Sometimes silence is the loudest declaration of all. Beverly sat back, arms crossed, smiling like someone who'd just won a long, vicious game. Tyler breathed hard, unable to meet my eyes. Amanda knelt on the floor, holding Noah, sobbing. Olivia shook uncontrollably near the table, and I understood something with absolute painful clarity. I had lost my family, but not because of me. Because of a woman who spent years building her influence like a cult, and Tyler had become her most loyal believer. I looked at every face I loved. Emma would never have wanted this. Noah should never have witnessed it. Amanda didn't deserve to be trapped between her mother and husband. Olivia didn't deserve to tremble in fear of her family breaking. And right then I understood. This was no longer about an apology. This was about whether I would allow Beverly to destroy every life in that room. And so I made a vow right there in Tyler's living room on Christmas Eve 2024. Beverly will pay. For every action, every manipulation, every humiliation. This chapter ends here, but my war had only just begun. The room was still vibrating from Tyler's shout, that sharp metallic echo in the air. Apologize, or leave. Amanda held Noah, who was shaking and crying. Olivia leaned against the dining table, her hands trembling. And Beverly stood behind Tyler like a general who had just ordered an execution. I rose slowly. I didn't yell. I didn't slam the table. I didn't point fingers. I didn't need to. I simply stood there, back straight, shoulders steady, like a man who knew exactly what he was about to do. Tyler stepped back half a pace. Not because I frightened him, but because he had never seen me this calm, this controlled, this dangerous. I scanned the table, every face, every tear, and finally my eyes settled on Beverly. My first words weren't to Tyler, or Amanda, or Noah. They were to her. Beverly. My voice was low even. I actually feel sorry for you. Amanda looked up. Olivia froze. Tyler stiffened like carved wood. I took one step toward Beverly. I feel sorry. Because at your age, you're competing for your own daughter's love against an old man like me. Silence detonated through the room. Beverly's hand jerked around her wine glass. Amanda covered her mouth. Olivia whispered, "Oh my God." Tyler stepped back again. That was the first strike, and I wasn't close to finished. I reached into my coat and placed a small stack of folded papers on the table. Tyler's voice cracked. "Dad, what is that?" "Not accusations," I said quietly. "Just truth." I picked up the first sheet and handed it to Tyler. Evidence 1. Beverly's email to Amanda's sister Mark is dragging them down. Tyler will never grow if he keeps listening to him. Amanda gasped, then broke down in tears. Tyler's face drained of color. Mom, did you write this?" Beverly tried to steady her voice. "Tyler, that email is taken out of context," but I placed the second sheet on the table, a screenshot Olivia had captured. Evidence 2. Beverly's message to Olivia. "You shouldn't talk to Mark. He holds you back. Real adults don't need men like him." Olivia stepped forward, voice shaking. "Tyler, everything Dad is showing you, it's all true. Mom said every one of those things to me." Beverly snapped around, furious. "Olivia, you misunderstood." I laid down the next document, a copy of that temporary financial authorization Beverly tricked Tyler into signing. Evidence 3. The financial control form. I slid it across the table toward him, the page with Tyler's signature facing up. "Remember this?" Tyler stared at it. His eyes widened. "Mom told me. She told me it was only for emergencies." I leaned in slightly. "You signed it because you trusted her, but that document gives her the ability to interfere with every financial decision you make." Beverly rushed in. "Tyler, sweetheart, I only wanted to help." For the first time that night I cut her off. "No, not help. Control." The front door opened. Kyle, our neighbor, walked in. Hat still covered in Oregon frost. Amanda stepped forward. I called him. He heard Mom talking about Dad at church brunch. Kyle nodded at me, then looked straight at Beverly. I didn't want to get involved, but Mark deserves the truth. He took a breath. "You told the women at church that Mark was a burden, that he caused chaos in Tyler's life. You said he doesn't belong with us." Tyler's jaw dropped. Olivia began to sob. Amanda let out a breath that sounded like a wound being ripped open. And Beverly. She didn't move. Her fingers tightened around her wine glass until her knuckles went white. Then Amanda's phone buzzed. She answered. It was Pastor Raymond. She put him on speaker. Mark, the pastor, said gently, "I won't mention names, but yes, someone has been spreading things about you at church, things that aren't true." The room dropped several degrees. A soft confirmation, but enough to crumble the empire Beverly had built. Amanda sank into her chair. Olivia hid her face in her hands. Tyler looked like someone had just pulled him out of deep water. Beverly slammed her glass onto the table. "Enough. This is all lies. Mark manipulated every one of you. He is poisoning this family." I looked at her steady, cold, unmoved. "Beverly, if you were confident you were right, you wouldn't be shaking." Her cheeks flushed red. Her breath came out ragged. She reached toward Tyler. "Desperate, sweetheart. Tell them I only wanted the best for you. Tell them." But Tyler wasn't looking at her. He was staring down at the papers, at the emails, at the truth. And then I delivered the final blow. "Tyler." He looked up, eyes red. "You remember the house you bought in 2010? He nodded weakly. "Amanda told me you helped a little with the process." I shook my head. "Not a little. You never knew because you never let me tell you." I held his gaze. "I paid the down payment for that house." The entire room fell into a void. The amount, I said slowly, was $28,000. Tyler staggered backward. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Olivia cried harder. Amanda covered her face, sobbing. And Beverly stumbled, like she'd been yanked off the throne she thought she owned. Her voice cracked. "Tyler, you can't believe him. You can't choose him over me." But Tyler said nothing. His silence was louder than any scream. Beverly grabbed her purse, threw open the door, and stormed into the freezing night. Nobody followed. Nobody called after her. Nobody even breathed until the sound of her car faded down the driveway. I sat down slowly, not triumphant, not proud, just relieved that the truth had finally cut through the storm. Olivia ran to me, hugging me tightly. Amanda dropped to the floor beside Noah, crying apologies into his hair. Tyler stood motionless, staring at me as though seeing his father clearly for the first time in years. I didn't tell him I'd won, because this wasn't a victory. This was the first step toward restoring what had been broken for me, for Amanda, for Noah, and for Tyler himself. I looked at him and said softly, "Son, I was never against you. I was only against what was destroying this family." Tyler sank into a chair, shaking hands, covering his face. He understood. They all understood. And now, the only question left was what Tyler would do next. There are houses where once the toxic person walks out the door, the air instantly feels lighter. But in Tyler's house, after Beverly stormed out that Christmas Eve, the silence that followed was heavy as lead. The scent of pine candles still hung in the living room. Beverly's wine stain was still drying on the white tablecloth. Noah's grandpa is my hero. Drawing still clung to the refrigerator, tilted ever so slightly like the household itself. And then the first explosion. The moment Beverly's SUV disappeared down the driveway, Tyler turned on Amanda. Why did you call Kyle? Why did you let everything turn into that?" His voice trembled not from anger, but from a man who had lived too long under someone else's control and no longer knew what to believe. Amanda stood up, tears streaking her face. "Because you needed to see the truth. Because your mother hurt everyone. Because she lied." Tyler snapped back out of habit. "Mom doesn't lie." And that was the moment Amanda broke. "Do you think I don't know who my mother is?" she screamed, voice shaking. "I lived with her my entire life. You only hear her side. You don't listen to me. You don't listen to Noah. You don't listen to any of us." The room blew apart like thunder. Noah cried and grabbed my leg. Olivia rushed between them, trying to calm the storm. Tyler froze as if someone had punched the air from his lungs. He whispered, "Amanda, you're saying your mom manipulated you?" Amanda nodded, tears dripping down her jaw. "Not just me. She manipulated all of us." After Amanda took Noah upstairs and Olivia started clearing dishes to break the tension, Tyler walked over to me. For the first time in years, he didn't look like a grown man. He looked like a lost boy. "Dad!" His voice cracked. I'm sorry." His head dropped. "I didn't know, Mom. I didn't know she said those things about you. I didn't know she lied about you. I didn't know." I put a hand on his shoulder. "Son, a person who's controlled isn't a bad person, just someone who hasn't woken up yet." And Tyler broke. A 34-year-old man sobbing in his father's arms. It hurt more than anything Beverly ever did to me. "Dad, I want to believe you. But for years, she filled my head with so much. I don't know what's true anymore." I nodded. "Truth stands on its own. It doesn't need you to believe it tonight." He hugged me for the first time in a very long time. And in that hug, I felt pain, guilt, fear. And something else, a crack of clarity. A few days later, Amanda called. "Dad, Noah wants to stay the night with you." When I arrived, Noah ran into my arms like I was the only safe place he knew. "Grandpa, I missed you." It was the sentence I'd been waiting months to hear. In my truck heater on Coco in his hands, he looked up. "Grandpa, am I allowed to see you now?" I held his small shoulder gently. "You can always see Grandpa. No one can stop that." Noah smiled, the kind of smile Beverly never succeeded in taking away. That night in my garage, I set him on my old toolbox and handed him a flashlight. "Point it right here, so Grandpa can fix this break." Noah spoke softly. "Grandpa, you're my safe place." I turned away quickly. If I looked at him too long, I'd break right there. In January 2025, Amanda began meeting with a counselor in Ashland. "I need to understand myself," she told me. "And I need to break away from my mother." I was proud of her. Very few people ever find the courage to stand up to a controlling parent, especially one with Beverly's social weight. Amanda began reducing contact. She declined brunch invitations, stopped answering her mother's constant calls. And the biggest step, she cut Beverly out of Tyler's financial life entirely. No more Excel sheets, no more weekly expense reviews. That was the first time Amanda said that I actually felt like I owned my life. Meanwhile, rumors spread across church faster than Oregon wildfire. Kyle didn't hide what he heard. Pastor Raymond didn't name names, but his gentle hint was enough for people to connect the dots. One Sunday, Mrs. Laura, an older member of the congregation, pulled Beverly aside. "We don't think the church is the place for gossiping about people anymore." Beverly went home shaking with anger. But that wasn't the worst blow. In her real estate circles, colleagues began stepping back. No one wanted their name tied to someone whispered about as toxic. Kyle told me they're avoiding her like acid rain. Karma works slowly, but it works. In February 2025, Tyler asked me to come over. He looked exhausted, but clearer than I had seen him in years. He handed me an envelope. "Dad, Mom sent this. I opened it. 3 pages, all in Beverly's sharp handwriting. Tyler, you have betrayed me. You chose a poor, useless old man over the woman who gave you everything. If you do not cut Mark off completely, I will cut you off. Near the end, choose, him or me. I handed the envelope back. Tyler exhaled, broken but freed. Dad. Before tonight I would have panicked. I would have begged her not to be angry. And now I asked. He set the letter down. I'm not answering. I don't have to. Amanda came out of the kitchen, placed a hand on his shoulder and said, We're not living for her anymore. We're living for our real family. Then Noah rushed down the stairs. Grandpa movie night. I bent down and wrapped him in my arms. For the first time in months, I felt like I still belonged here. That night as I drove home through the cold Ashland wind, a strange peace settled inside me. Tyler was waking up. Amanda was finally breaking free. Noah was himself again. Olivia stood firmly with me. And Beverly, with all her money, status, and social power, was suddenly alone in the world she thought she ruled. But I knew one thing. A person like Beverly never accepts defeat quietly. Her downfall on Christmas Eve was only the beginning. And I, Mark Walker, was ready for the final chapter. November 12th, 2025. Exactly 1 year since that Christmas Eve split my life in two, the old half crushed under manipulation, shame, and poisoned misunderstandings, and the new half rebuilt on truth, love, and the self-respect I thought I had lost forever. Ashland was cold that morning, dry and still. A thin layer of frost coated the pine trees in my yard. I sat on the familiar wooden chair on my porch, the one I fixed myself earlier in the fall. Hands wrapped around a hot mug of coffee, watching yellow leaves tumble slowly in the wind as if time itself had paused. No more shouting, no more slamming doors, no more feeling erased from my own family. Just peace, a peace I thought I would never feel again. And this morning, something I had waited almost a full year for finally happened. Tyler's gray truck pulled into the driveway. He shut off the engine but didn't get out immediately. He sat there for several seconds, gathering his courage. I didn't move. I didn't call out. I simply waited. At last he stepped out. No gifts, no false confidence. Just tired eyes and a gentleness I hadn't seen in him for years. He walked up the porch steps slow and steady. Then he stood in front of me. Dad. One simple word, but I hadn't heard him say it in that voice in a very long time. The voice of a son who truly wanted forgiveness. I nodded. Son. He breathed in deeply. I could see him wrestling with himself, not trying to say the perfect apology, but trying to say an honest one. Dad, I'm sorry. Not the kind of sorry you say after a fight. I mean truly, deeply sorry. For letting my mother-in-law control me. For not protecting Amanda. For not protecting Noah. And for not standing with you when it mattered. I didn't respond. Sometimes silence is the only way to honor a genuine apology. Tyler continued. Therapy helped me see things clearly. I realized every word she said about you, about our family, about social status and appearances, was her way of making me ashamed of where I came from. His voice cracked. But I'm not ashamed anymore. I was raised to feel embarrassed of the man who worked through torn knees and a bad back. But now I know, Dad, you're the reason I have the life I have. A tear slid down his cheek. Dad, I'm sorry I made you go through all of that. I stood, placed my hand on his shoulder, and said quietly, You came back. That's enough. Amanda stepped out of the truck next. She must have waited for Tyler to have his moment first. She walked toward me, eyes red and swollen, hands trembling slightly. Dad, I have something I need to say too. I smiled gently. Go ahead, sweetheart. She drew a deep breath. I grew up with a mother who always believed she was right, who had to control everything. I thought that was love. But now I know that wasn't love. That was control. Her voice wavered. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have seen it. No one in this family was strong enough to say the truth except you. Then she looked at me with raw, unguarded honesty, the kind a daughter gives only to someone who protected her without conditions. I finally know who my real family is. And that's you. I pulled her into a hug. A tight, grounding hug. One that told her she was free from the shadow she had lived under her entire life. And then, the truck door slammed and Noah shot out like a rocket. Grandpa. He wrapped around my leg like he'd been waiting a whole year for this moment. I picked him up and his little arms went around my neck. Grandpa, can we go fishing again? I laughed, only the second real laugh I'd had in a year. All day long, buddy. I promise. His smile, bright, innocent, untouched, was something Beverly never managed to steal. I'm not a man who chases cruel revenge. Even in my darkest moments, I still believe some justice doesn't require my hand. And over the year, I heard enough about Beverly. Her real estate friends avoided her. The church women stopped inviting her. Amanda's aunt from Wisconsin called to say Beverly's living alone now. No one wants to hear her complain anymore. I didn't laugh. I didn't celebrate. I just understood. When someone builds their world on contempt, they eventually drown in it when everyone finally steps away. Karma didn't need my help. Beverly crafted her own punishment. By late morning, everyone was gathered in my kitchen. Amanda made waffles. Noah dropped marshmallows into cocoa. Tyler tried to fix a pipe under my sink even though the pipe wasn't actually broken. I just wanted an excuse to teach him something again. To work side by side like old times. He muttered from under the cabinet, Dad, this thing is harder than it looks. I chuckled. You're used to office work. Let me show you. Noah knelt beside him holding a flashlight. Grandpa, do I point it here? That's perfect, kiddo. Olivia sat in the corner reading, smiling every time Tyler and I joked with each other. No one mentioned Beverly. No one tiptoed around anything. No one acted afraid. A family not perfect but real sat in my home. A family not controlled, not divided, not defined by someone else's power. This was what I fought for all year. As the winter sun set, a golden line of light cut across my small kitchen table. I stood there watching my family, their real faces, their real emotions, their real love. And I thought, sometimes in life, you have to stand alone in the storm. You have to hear the people you love say things that shatter your heart. You have to pay for your own silence. But if you're listening to this right now, remember, truth is stronger than any lie. Self-respect matters more than keeping a fake peace. And real family will always find their way back to you once the light comes in again. If this story touched you, tell me where you're listening from. And if you've ever gone through something like this, you're not alone. We share real stories here every day. About truth, self-worth, and love inside imperfect families. Don't forget to subscribe. Sometimes a single story at the right moment is enough to remind someone that they deserve respect.